Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about my Sampler Spree quilt blocks. I was sharing those pretty regularly through the summer, and then I just kind of fell off the internet with those this fall, and I've had a few people ask me to share. And so as I was writing a blog post the other day, I thought, wow, there are actually a lot of things I could say in a video for this. Not only about these blocks, but also just about choosing fabrics for scrap quilts in general. So let's get started, and I'll walk you through my recent finishes and talk a little bit about scrap quilts. Okay, before we get started, I just wanted to point out that even if you're not making the Sampler Spree quilt, I do share quite a few tips at the end of this video that will work for any kind of scrap project that you're doing. So if you want to just jump ahead to then, that's fine. If not, I'm going to just start right here and go through block by block with the blocks that I made this past week. Okay, so as I mentioned in the introduction, I have received a few emails recently asking me if I'll share kind of my tips for all of the blocks. This is the first 60 blocks, and I have, several blog posts. At first it was just 5 at a time, and then I think the last group had 10. But anyway, I shared all the tips and the special rulers and what fabrics I used. And so as I was writing this post the other day on this most recent set of blocks, I thought it would actually make a really good video because I can give you a lot more information just talking about it. So I'm going to actually flip them over. So with this block, I used the Block Lock Flying Geese rulers for the flying geese sections around here. Everything else was really straightforward, lots of squares and rectangles. I did, kind of fussy cut this gingham so it would be going with not the straight of grain, but with this grain. So, and all of these fabrics, let's see, are from, this blue is from Balboa, and everything else is from Seashore Drive. Okay, block 62. I did use the method of making the half square triangles larger and trimming them down. And then for this one also, I feel like in the book they have you cutting these lights and dark just the length that they're supposed to be, but I actually cut a long strip of the green and 2 long strips of the white, and then I cut them down, and that is so much easier doing it that way to get this really accurate. And I did the same thing for the little 9 patch in the center. I did not cut little squares. I made 2 strip sets, a dark, light, dark, and a light, dark, light, and then I cross cut those, and it just made it so much easier to get it accurate. And these fabrics are from, the navy is from Happy Days, and the green is from Balboa. Block 63 is this fun tree block, and I used Summer Sweet for the green and Balboa for the dark gray for the trunk. And I did use the mini simple folded corners ruler. I think it was on this bottom stem, but for all of these others, Susan has a different method in the book. I think it's on page 7. But anyway, in the pattern, she tells you what page to go to. And I did use her method for the rest of these, and it worked really, really well. So you do draw lines, but they go together really well. Block 64. This one, Susan actually did have you sewing just a really long strip of the red and the white together and then cutting these sections from that. So that was great. I just followed the instructions on the book completely for this one. 65. I got to keep my count on these. This one I was a little bit nervous about because I didn't really have a shortcut method, and you're cutting a lot of squares in half and working with triangles on the bias. But I just took it slow, and I was really pleasantly surprised with how this snail's trail block turned out. So yeah, for this one, I don't really have any special hints or tips other than just take it slow. And oh, the one thing I did do was when I was adding pieces, I did sew from the back side to make sure that I didn't cut off points. And I was able to, I think, keep from cutting them all off that way by sewing on the back so that I could see that seam line. So block 66, oh, these fabrics are all Seashore Drive. And these fabrics are all Seashore Drive as well. And I did use the Block Lock Flying Geese ruler. For these sections, everything else is square, so that was super easy. This one was a really fun block. The green is from Summer Sweet, and the aqua is from Happy Days, and the background is from Sincerely Yours. And mini simple folded corners ruler on this one for all of these sections. You don't have to draw any lines. It saves a ton of time. You will definitely want to use that ruler. This one, I kind of wish I had done one thing differently. I wish that I had done these 4 squares with a different fabric to provide some more contrast. Susan had her whole block made with one fabric like this, and so I just kind of followed the directions. But after, well, she had a second one for the center too. But afterwards, I really wish I had done another contrasting fabric here. I just feel like it would have made it stand out. And with this as well, I didn't cut little squares for these 4 patches. I made strip sets with dark and light and cross cut, and then I put my 4 patches together. So saved a lot of time and made those a little bit more accurately. But you know, I always say in a busy, scrappy quilt like this, it's not going to matter if one block isn't exactly perfect. It's all going to be fine in the end. So I did not want to, that didn't bother me so much that I wanted to take it apart and add in a fabric. So, okay, and then 69. This is probably my favorite block of the ones I pieced in this group. I had so much fun combining the Seashore Drive medium floral with that orchid and coral with this. Oh, and I just realized, look at that. This fabric is backwards. I will take that apart and flip that in the right way. I'll just take it apart and make a new section right here. But the navy print is from Happy Days, and I just love how these went together. This is just such a fun fabric combination. Mini simple folded corners ruler on this one helps a lot, and it's really hard to tell, but these outer 4 corner units are actually flying geese, and so I did use the Block Lock trim tool for that. And the last block I made in this group, I had so much fun using these 2 that I used them again and then added the dark plum from Sincerely Yours. So this one was a really fun block to make too. It's very bold, so I'm going to have to make sure that I use this plum fabric again. I went through my blocks and I hadn't used it yet. So I'm going to have to make sure I use it once or twice more so that I can spread it out throughout the quilt and not just have your whole eye be drawn in the quilt to this one really bold block. For this one, I just, it's a lot of squares and rectangles, and I just went carefully and made sure that these units were trimmed to the proper size before adding them in. Okay, so that's leads me just to kind of talking a little bit about scrap quilts as I thought about when I was going through this. When Susan started doing the quilt along for this book, she suggested that you make 10 blocks a week for 10 weeks, and she had 10 different colorways. So one week, for instance, you were making all blues, and another week all yellows, and another week all aquas. And I didn't do that. I just kind of followed along, just mixing things up. At one point, I did go back and kind of count my colors, and I made a little, just hash marks. And mine were pretty even. There weren't really any colors that I was missing or that it was way off-centered. So I've just kept going. But if you're really concerned, that's a great method that she used. And you could do the same thing and just have like a little spreadsheet and put a hash mark every time you make a navy block or a red block or whatever if you're going scrappy. But I've also seen this quilt so beautifully done just in red, white, and blue. It would be a beautiful Christmas quilt. There's so many options. And I'm still trying to decide on sashing. She has a light and a darker sashing that really set her blocks off. And I'm kind of thinking of a light and a medium. And let me show you what I mean. I'm going to grab a couple of scrap quilts and just show you what I'm thinking of by medium sashing. So first, this is my Blockheads 3 quilt, and what I meant by medium sashing is this. It's kind of a tone-on-tone print. You can see a little bit of the tan, but it has the cream as the background. So I'm kind of thinking of combining something like this with a light for mine instead of going really dark like Susan's. My colors are pretty bold, and I want to give your eyes some place to rest. And I've got one more example of this I'll put on the table. Okay, so this is my, I think it was 2019 block of the month. I have this pattern in my Etsy shop. So this is another example of kind of a medium sashing. I feel like this is a little bit busier than the Blockheads 3 quilt that I just showed you, but it's also another option. So, and this is actually one of my favorite florals that we've ever done. I used it on sashing for quite a few quilts. I am thinking maybe something like this along with a cream. So just so you get an idea of, you have other options for the sashing. One more thing I wanted to point out about scrap quilts is that they usually just miraculously come together. When you have a lot of different colors and fabrics going on, you can usually play around with the placement and get a look that you like with a quilt like this. So as long as you're kind of keeping track with your color distribution while you're sewing, you should be fine in the end, because you can move those blocks around and really get the layout that you like. Okay, I think that's about all. I have 30 more blocks to go. I really am trying to get those finished up by the end of this year so I can maybe put this quilt together the week after Christmas and count it as a 2021 finish. Okay, so that's it for today's video. I hope that you got some ideas about putting fabrics together for your favorite scrap quilts, and also if you're sewing along with the Sampler Spree blocks, hope you got some tips and tricks for putting this set of blocks together. I will link the blog post and all of my previous blog posts if you are just thinking about starting with this project and want to go back, because I've given my tips for every single block through block 70 now, and I'll continue to update with the remaining 30 blocks. If you enjoyed today's video, please share it with a friend, hit the subscribe button and the like button, and thanks so much for stopping by.